Hello there, and welcome to Healing the World Together. Listen, 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 listen. I've got someone for you today. Mm, I have been watching this person for a very long time. It's like if you know me by now, you know that I just look at people and suss them out and everything. And she's someone that I'm like, do you know what? I want to get to know her better. And a few months ago, she actually said yes to joining my talk show, The Panel. She is the unconventional weight loss coach. She's a number one best-selling author. She's in the press almost every other week talking about something. She's got a lot to talk about. Naomi Holbrook, hello.
Oh, can I just say, could I just take you everywhere with me and you literally just introduce me, like even in the supermarket? Because
Do that.
that warmed my heart. Thank you,
It's
thank
true.
you.
It's true. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Um, you know, out of a group of people that I wanted to come on here, you were one of them and stuff. So I'm really chuffed that you said yes.
I would not say no.
I like that. So let's just go straight in because there's a lot that people don't know about you. There's a lot that you do talk about. But when people see unconventional weight loss coach, then they look at you and they go, how did she get into that? Do you want to just give us some context?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, like when I say like how much and how far back do you want me to go? Um, because I guess the kind of the pivot point for me was 30 at 39. My health was not in a good place at all. I had, from many years had disordered eating, emotional eating, mental health problems, suffered with depression, anxiety from a really young age. I mean, I'm talking about childhood, but going into like psychiatric care and having, medical intervention from sort of the age of 14,
Yeah.
and then literally gone through my teens, my 20s, my 30s in this just sleepwalking, really. Like, had a really successful career and everything, but I was always using food, alcohol to numb, to cope with life, to celebrate. Like, it was used for everything. And then at 39, I was just really struggling with my health, physically not good, pre-diabetic. I'd had spinal surgery in my 30s, my joints, I literally, pain getting out of bed, like even in my 30s. And mental health, depression, was still really bad. So after my 39th birthday, I was just like, something's got to change.
Mm.
And that's when I made, various changes in my life, which impacted every area of my life. Yes, I lost 70 pounds of weight. However, what I always say is like, it
Mm.
really wasn't about the weight loss. For me, it was about reversing every medical condition I had. I had asthma from childhood, eczema, IBS, chronic depression, all these different things. And I actually reversed and healed every single one of them. Um, and then what ended up happening was at 41, I didn't realize, but I was already on my menopause journey. And whilst physically I was the healthiest I'd ever been, strong, doing things like obstacle course racing and all that sort of stuff,
Mm.
I still was not in a great place mentally. And I hadn't realized that perimenopause had started. I was struggling with my confidence in my career, and struggling with memory, brain fog, all those different things.
Yeah.
And in fact, it'll be 10 years this January. I just walked out of my 21-year corporate career, no plan B. And that's when I just sat and thought, what on earth am I going to do now? And the unconventional weight loss coach was not actually born then. I went
Mm.
back, retrained, became a certified nutrition and weight management coach. And originally, I literally was doing just weight loss.
Mm.
But the unconventional weight loss has come about because what I do is not conventional.
Mm. I love that. Now, that's a lot to
I
go.
know.
That's a
I
lot.
did ask you how much you wanted.
That's a lot to go through, Naomi.
That's a
But
short version.
but this is what I love because I think when people see you and I'm lucky enough to read what you talk about, and also we share some conversations as well. So, but when somebody sees you, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, she's got it all together," and they probably think, "Well, I bet she never had to lose weight," and you know. Monica from Friends, she's got that fat suit on and stuff. I bet they
Yes.
go, I bet she's got a fat suit on and stuff. I'm sure they don't, but they think you've got it easy. I'm sure people think, oh God, she's got it easy. And my question is, as the unconventional weight loss coach, um, what's what's the most maybe damaging and conventional belief that women still hold about weight and well-being?
Oh God. I mean, it's a can of worms, but do you know what? I think I'm going to use an example of one of my clients today who's
Yes.
not been in my program for very long, but just really some feedback she gave today. She has battled for like 40 plus years with diet
Mm,
culture, with weight issues. Actually, what comes down to so much of it is the shame and the guilt.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. It's the biggest things that so many women hold, not just around their weight,
Hmm.
about their inability to manage their emotions without food, or you know get through a stressful day without head in a bag of chocolate or bottle of wine being opened. So it's not even like the calorie counting, the and it's why so many women, and obviously not just women, but I always, I work with women, so it's what I talk about, but
Yeah.
it's why they battle so often with losing weight, regaining weight, losing weight, regaining weight, because they're focusing on the external transformation, the
Hmm.
calories in, calories out, diet and exercise, instead of actually focusing on their identity
Mm.
and neural pathways, but also on all the old programming and the relationship that they've created with themselves because of the relationship with food, and it goes back to like the bad food, good food. And
Yeah.
when, and listen, blooming slimming world, and their main thing is all around sins,
Yes. Yes.
and Weight Watchers, which is all around points.
Yeah.
It disconnects women from understanding their bodies, their hormones, how everything works. And what ends up happening is literally we have these layers of shame and guilt that just build up and build up and build up. And that's where so often the whole disconnect comes from with food, body, and soul. We talk about spiritual, and actually there's so much spiritual disconnect when that relationship with food has been difficult.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, there's so much I could add to that, but first and foremost, we're not the same. So trying to take a blanket approach for everybody is probably one of the most dangerous things.
Yeah.
And it also takes into account, so if I'm suffering from depression and you give me a one size fits all format, and somebody else is suffering from bulimia, for example, it's never going to work, is it? Because like you're not, all you're looking at is just one layer of what you think the problem is, and it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Or you're not even looking at the problem, you're looking at the solution. You're looking at one layer of a solution. So it's interesting that people never lose the weight. And then there's also the other aspect of being maybe being in a powerful position. So initially they used to say that anybody who was fat was lazy.
Yeah.
And then now, and I still see it online where people say, well, if you don't lose weight, it means you can't, if you can't take control of your weight, it means you can't take control of anything else and stuff and everything else. And I beg to differ because, as women, we're very good at multitasking.
I completely bloody agree. And 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 I hear this all the time. Women come to me and they say, Naomi, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Mm.
I've had a successful career. I've run a successful business. I've got the family. I've done all these different things. This is the one thing in my life I can't seem to fix.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're absolutely right. It's absolute BS that if somebody cannot, manage their weight, control their weight, that actually, therefore, they can't run a business, they can't be a good person, they can't do all those different things. And that's where another layer of shame and guilt comes from.
Mm. So let me ask you this question then, because I believe the industry and society are a lot to blame.
Oh, yeah.
That's my opinion. So, what do you think that the industry keeps telling women the problem is about their body? And what do you think the real problem is? I know you've touched on it with some of the diet options and what have you, but I want us to go a bit deeper into that.
So I think the real problem is, and you're absolutely right, I think society, the media, you know, all the diet industry, all of them are, it's about women shrinking.
Right.
That I think that's the predominant message. And
Mm.
I have women that come to work with me, and honestly, I don't care what they weigh when they come to me. I actually don't care what they weigh when they leave me. Nothing that I do is about shrinking their bodies. It's about healing them from the inside. It's about, all those different areas of the relationship. So I think that's the biggest problem,
Yeah.
is that, like, it's about telling women that skinny is better, smaller is better. And I know we had this conversation on the panel, actually. I remember us doing it, and we talked, and it was when the Beckham's documentary came
Yes,
out.
yes, yes.
And I think this is the other problem, is women are played off against each other
Oh
continuously,
my
but
God.
also they're played off against themselves. So, like, it's like, you see it so often in magazines, papers, like when, a woman has obviously had a child or whatever, and it's like, this was her 5 years ago, look at her now. And why? Like, our
Mm.
bodies change, we evolve, we go through, perimenopause, menopause has a massive impact. We all go through so many different things, and yet it's like, it's telling women that they are never ever good enough. And most women have, at some point in their lives, regardless of circumstances, family, or anything, they've already felt that for themselves. And then it's just being constantly, like, loudspeakered to them. So I think it's most definitely like external pressure.
Interesting. So let's have a look at discipline. I believe you're a very disciplined woman. Like, listen, we were talking about me coming on your Instagram, and you're like, right, I'm putting it in a book and stuff and everything else. I'm sure I do it as well, but watching somebody else do it and stuff, it's fascinating. I'm like, she's very organized. Like, it's interesting, but what's the misconception that maybe your audience have around discipline? Because I can imagine that saying to somebody, you need to create some form of discipline, some form of constancy in your life can be quite intimidating for some people and in some cases overwhelming. So how do your audience see that, and how do you get them to follow those practices so that it can create the results that they need?
Yeah, I love that you've brought it up, because something that I always say with my clients, and actually my audience, is I don't have unlimited motivation, willpower, or discipline.
Yeah.
And it's why I failed for so many years,
Mm.
because I kept telling myself, like, oh my God, how have other people got motivation? How have other people got willpower, discipline? And yes, lots and lots of coaches out there say you need more discipline. It doesn't work. So I have a formula, the SMART formula. It's the framework inside of my program. But actually, what I do is I help women to stop relying on motivation, willpower, and discipline to achieve their goals. And it's not just weight loss goals. Women come to me for weight loss, but actually, what they end up doing is getting better jobs, promotions, moving to better companies. Um, even what I would consider not silly things, but actually getting their house in order.
See?
Like, it's all those ripple effects that happen. But actually, what that comes down to isn't discipline, motivation, or willpower. It comes down to identity and reprogramming.
Mm.
So, like, if you'd asked me even 11 years ago, I'd have said I'm a lazy person. Even
Right.
though I had worked hard in my career,
Hmm.
my weekends were spent either, like, napping on the sofa, getting a takeaway, watching 7 hours of Netflix, because I was just, but actually I wasn't lazy. I was blooming exhausted. because I wasn't looking after my health in a way that, my energy was optimized and that I felt strong and good and everything else. So
Mm.
it's such a misconception, motivation, willpower, and discipline. And there's also a lot of scientific evidence that once we hit perimenopause, usually sort of 35 plus, and estrogen levels start to decline, our ability for that motivation, willpower, and discipline, it's like it's got on a bus and it's gone.
Yeah.
So I teach women better framework and tools to stop relying on it. People say to me, God, I wish I had your motivation to like go to the gym, go out for a walk, eat healthy, get up and go for a swim in the sea. None of it's motivation, willpower, or discipline. It's because that's the identity of the person that I've created, and I now have reprogrammed. And I also have, foundations and tools in
Yeah.
place. I have created tools and a methodology that means I don't need to rely on the motivation and the willpower because the framework is there, and and then the identity kicks in when I don't have the motivation, willpower, and discipline.
And let's face it, you've worked hard. You've worked hard to get to this level. It's not as if you woke up one day and then you had, the motivation or the discipline that you have now.
No, you're absolutely right. But I think something I'd like to sort of say to that is I my life feels easier now
Mhm.
than it has ever felt,
Yeah.
even though it's harder now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Because I realize how much of a drain and a strain my poor physical, mental, and emotional health had on every area of my life. Everything felt like an uphill battle.
Right.
Now, I've got a lot of mountains that I climb on a daily basis, but they don't feel hard.
Beautiful. So let's talk about self-esteem because by the time a woman comes to you, I'm guessing that her self-esteem is at a low. And I want us to sort of like, break it down. Sort of like when do we start losing our self-esteem and stuff? I mean, I have my opinion about this, but I'd love to get your thoughts. Is it childhood, motherhood? Is it society's expectations? What do you see with your audience?
So, first of all, a lot of women that come to me, you
Mm.
wouldn't know that they had low self-esteem.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Like,
Mm.
obviously I'm very, very honest in my, what I speak about in my social media and everything. And people, I even have people message me now and friends that have known me for 30, 40 years, and they go, I can't believe that you suffered with depression. I can't believe that you like had low self. I can't believe that you didn't have confidence. Can't believe that you couldn't walk into parties on your own because I was so damn good at masking.
Yeah.
So actually, most of the women that come to me, you wouldn't know that they had low self-esteem, lack of confidence, no belief, all these different things, because they have been so busy masking it. But behind the scenes, as in, under the
Yeah.
bonnet,
Yeah.
like it was for me, the second guessing myself, the lack of belief, the fear, the doubt, all those different things. So I think, first of all, like I said, a lot of women don't show signs that they have self-esteem.
Hmm.
But then when I talk, coach, and work with women, actually, it's almost like it's kind of like a bit of a birth timeline. There will be things that have happened in
Yeah.
her life that have not necessarily one huge event, they've chipped away at the self-esteem. And then, of course, what happens is we hit perimenopause,
Yeah. Oh.
and it is a physiological effect of perimenopause that actually what happens is like confidence gets hit, our trust with ourselves, all those different things happen.
Yeah.
And that then almost has this like kind of complete domino effect. So we already had some self-esteem, don't like the word issues, but we had some self-esteem kind of like, damage or erosion or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then perimenopause hits, and it's like whatever was left is out the window. So it's then about learning it and rebuilding it.
Mm.
And again, so many women come to me and they're like, I wish I had your confidence to go see swimming. I wish I had your confidence to travel abroad on my own. I wish I had your confidence to go and eat a meal in a restaurant on my own. I didn't have any of that.
Mm.
It's all it's what I've created by doing and using the framework. So yeah, I think most women, you think they have confidence, good self-esteem, everything, and actually it's very often yeah, I don't like to use the word fake, but it is masked, it is put
Yeah.
on to kind of have that sort of thing. But that's when that real authenticity, and
Mm.
I even see that in myself. I look back now and I just realize how misaligned I was with so many areas of my life because I was showing up with this mask on rather than just showing up as me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think as women we're just really good at masking because we almost have that or feel that responsibility to be okay,
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody else is okay. So we'll put our emotions last to make sure that everybody else is okay. I remember years ago, I used to go to a local pub down the road and we'd be there. We'd sometimes we'd go there like 3, 4 times a week. But we were young and we were having fun and everything else. And I remember as I was leaving the pub, like graduating from being in the pub, I said to a friend, "Oh, do you know anyone that you could fix me up with?" And she was like, "Oh." I went, "What?" She went, "Do you know what?" She goes, "I always thought you were okay." I was like, I don't understand. And she's like, "Well, you've just never shown interest in dating anyone, so I just thought you were okay." And I was like, "Yeah, that's just me having fun." And then I realized that I'd been masking without even realizing it. Like, I was being okay. I was being happy. Bless you in
I
advance.
could tell that was coming. I'm so sorry.
Please do not apologize. We're human beings here. So let's move to grief because I believe that as women, we carry so many layers of grief within us that we don't even realize. And I'm sure there's still some women who would argue this topic and say, I don't have any grief, I'm good and everything else. But what, what is that silent grief that we carry in our bodies that nobody talks about?
Oh my God, that is like it's not even a suitcase. It's the biggest bloody trunk you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's various different reasons behind this. So generationally, I grew up with parents of the post-war generation.
Right.
Um, never explain, never complain.
There you go.
That was one of the Queen's favorite sayings, wasn't
It
it?
was, yes.
She wasn't my grandma or my mum.
You sure?
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe distant, maybe in the distance. But again, my dad's
Yes.
92. I grew up in that we sweep everything under the carpet. We don't talk about grief. We don't talk about loss. We don't talk about any of that stuff. And obviously my story, I lost my mum when I was a teenager, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting this last few weeks and looking at that grief. And my gosh, I didn't unpack that box until my 40s, and I lost her when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I carried that grief and loss and trauma. And actually, why did I? Because I felt ashamed.
Yeah.
I never felt a safe place to talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel seen or heard. And it was always like, put on a brave face. Your mum wouldn't want you to feel like this. She'd want you to be happy. All those different things, which,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I get that those things came from a good place, but they certainly didn't help.
Mm.
And I work with a lot of women that come to me actually in widowhood, and some have lost their husbands, partners, incredibly, incredibly, like, quickly
Young. Yeah.
and young and not expected. And also, let's talk about not just widowhood. Actually, the women come to me after divorce and
Yeah.
marriage breakdown, and there is a grief and a loss there. There is a grief and a loss for the women that come to work with me that have left their corporate careers or been made redundant. But I think there's a couple of things here that, first of all, we feel a lot of shame.
Hmm.
As women, we are predominantly, thank God it is starting to change. And even the fact that we're having these conversations on podcasts and the
Yeah.
panel and all these things, but women have, I know a lot of men say like they're not allowed to talk about their emotions. Most women have been brought up not sharing how they feel. So, what do we say when we meet up and go, "How are you?" "I'm okay, I'm fine."
Fine, yeah. You
Whenever
shouldn't have, and I'm fine. And it's all that. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
it's surface level.
Yeah, very
We've
much
been
so.
taught to do that. So, whenever I see a friend, whenever I have a phone call, whenever I have a client on a coaching call, I ask that question twice. And the second time I say, "How are you really?"
Really.
Because most of us have been conditioned and programmed to say, "I'm fine, I'm good, everything's okay," even whilst like literally the whole world is absolutely falling apart. So grief and loss come in so many different packages.
Yeah.
Grief and loss is not just about losing a loved one. It can be, absolutely anything. So I think, like I say, there's the not being able to talk about it out of shame.
Yeah.
The, oh, I don't want to be like the Debbie Downer when everybody's like, all of that sort of thing. So there's just, again, it's layers of shame, layers of guilt, all those different things. And, even if we come back and talk about like the press and the media, you see some people who have obviously, had a loss, a bereavement, and sometimes they're slated for like talking about it afterwards.
Yeah, it's like too much.
And then they're slated for like having a new partner. And then they're slated for like all, and it's like grief and loss is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's, again, no one size fits all.
Not at all. Not at all. Now let's look at your book because your number one book. I want to just touch on that because you say weight is not the problem.
Yes.
Now, obviously, you don't want to give too much away because we need to go buy the book. I've got a copy actually. But my question is, what is the problem?
I love that you just asked that.
What is it?
So we think the weight is the problem. We think that, like, when, a little bit like me, when I lose the weight, I'll be happy. When I lose the weight, I'll have my dream relationship. When I lose the weight, I'll have the confidence to, go on a holiday, lifetime, all those different things. But also, I kept focusing on the weight, the symptom, rather than the root cause. So many women, they're focused on like, when I lose 3 stone, when I, lose 10 pounds, this XYZ will happen. And ironically, like, and women have been saying this to me for years, and I'm not saying it didn't twig. I'm a relatively smart human being, but they kept like joining my programs and working with me because of the weight loss. So they'd come to me and go like, I'd be like, what do you want to achieve in 3 months, 4 months, 12 months, whatever? Well, you know what? I'll be happy when I'm size X. I'll be happy when I'm pre-baby weight. I'll be happy when I'm this. And literally within a week to 2 weeks of following the framework, yes, they were losing weight, but they'd go, "Oh my God, this isn't about the weight."
Yeah.
It's about the emotions. It's about our relationship with food. It's about our nervous system. It's
Yeah.
about our hormones. It's
Yeah.
about our families, believe it or not. I look back and so much of my relationship with food and my body, and I always used to feel a bit guilty saying this, but I don't anymore because I'm, guilt-free, shame-free, all of that.
Men.
But my disordered eating and my poor relationship with my body and food stemmed from my mum, and stemmed from her relationship with her body and food. My mum was, I grew up, I'm 75 baby, grew up, in the 80s, every flipping fad diet. My mum was never happy with her body, never happy with her weight, always on a fad diet, or she was the extreme. She was, opening a bag of Marks and Spencer salted cashew nuts and opening the box of celebrations in October that were bought ready for Christmas. And then of course my mum was an amazing baker, so there was always treats on her days off and homemade things. And then of course when my mum died, everybody else tried to replace the love with food. And
Yeah.
my dad did it then for decades, but I didn't realize any of it because I kept thinking, my God, I haven't got the discipline or the willpower to say no when he puts the cake there or the portion of fish and chips or ask me if I want another chocolate bar. So the weight isn't the problem. The food isn't the problem. It's all of our previous programming, our learnings, pretty like from everything from 2 years old, such early memories and such early conditioning and programming. That's the root of the problem.
Love it. I love that you've put some language to that actually, because I believe that there's a lot of people that probably see the book, don't ask the question, and I really wanted you to just pull that out so that people can just listen and, come to you and get the help that they truly need. So, talking about help, what kind of woman comes to freedom from diets and what are they searching for?
So,
You might want to tell people what freedom from diets is.
yeah, so Freedom from Diets is my signature 12-week group program. Thank you.
Well,
All based around my SMART formula framework, but it is an incredibly transformative program. I mean, women come to Freedom from Diets usually for weight loss
hmm
or to change their relationship with food. And actually, it's not all of my clients come to me for weight loss. Some actually come to me because they want to eat healthier, they want to have longevity, they want to be around for their families longer, all those different things. Or maybe they've hit perimenopause, menopause, they can feel shifts and changes, they don't know what's causing it. Um, so, predominantly, most women come to Freedom from Diets for their relationship with food and their bodies,
Yeah.
weight. However, what they discover inside the program is, and I find it really hard to describe it if I'm honest. It's probably why I find it very hard in my messaging, because what women start to then get is, I always say they come home to themselves.
Mm, yeah.
They find a version of themselves that they didn't know existed. Because once they stop dieting
Mhm.
and follow my framework, there's no rules, no regulations, no calorie counting, no, you've got to do this amount of workouts a week, no tracking, no app, none of that rubbish.
Mhm.
They reconnect with their bodies, their minds, themselves. Then what starts to happen is their belief gets better. In a lot of their I have a lot of women that come to me, and one of the first things they say is, Naomi, I actually think I need to leave my marriage. I'm unhappy. We don't have any intimacy anymore.
Mm.
We argue all the time, or we don't communicate. And actually, no woman has ever inside my program left a marriage. They've actually healed their marriages, because actually what's happened is she's so disconnected from herself
Yes.
that that's the energy that she's putting out into her marriage, her loved ones, her children, her grandchildren, her parents, her siblings, her colleagues. They're getting this version of her that isn't showing up as her. She's showing up masking in every single area. So really what happens inside Freedom from Diets and my one-to-one program is women start to heal from the inside out. And that literally is like, the women that work with me, they come to me and they're type 2 diabetic, and they're on antidepressants, and they're on steroids for asthma and high blood pressure and all those things. And one by one, they come into the program, and then it's like, oh my God, my eczema's cleared up. Oh my God, my IBS is gone.
Wonderful.
Oh my God, I don't want to be on antidepressants anymore. So all these things start to heal from the inside out. She gets physically stronger, mentally, emotionally stronger. And it is a life transforming program. I've had women that come into this program to lose weight, and before I know it, and they're saying to me things like, I don't have the confidence, I've lost my husband, don't have the confidence to go and do things. The next thing is she's messaging me and saying, guess what? I've just booked a trip on my own, and I've just taken myself to my first dance class, and I'm going to start my own business and I've decided to apply for a promotion that I never would have dreamed I could have.
Wow.
And that's when that confidence, belief, self-esteem, everything becomes so much bigger than the weight loss.
That's just beautiful. So as we start to wrap up, what's the message you wish every woman would finally allow herself to hear?
Oh, I'm going to say that she is worth the investment
Wow.
because I hear this so often from women,
Mm.
and they've maybe been in my world for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years,
Mm.
and they want to join the program and they know that, the results, they've seen the results that my clients get. And then often I will hear this phrase, I can't justify
Oh,
spending the money on me.
yeah.
But yet I see these women on social media and, they're spending it on others. They're going on holidays, kitchen extensions, new
Yeah.
cars. She has been conditioned and programmed, like I was, to believe that money on us, it just shouldn't happen. Like it's not the done thing.
Yeah. Me last.
Me last.
Yeah. Me last.
And I have a lot of women that come to me and they're like, oh my God, I am doing this. I'm going to do it from my savings. I'm doing it. I also have men contact me and say, I am doing this for my wife. I have some women say, my husband insisted, he's paying for it, he wants me to join. But what the reason I want to give that message is, look, if they join my program, amazing. If they don't, that's fine. But the problem is, the longer she puts off investing in herself, the worse things get,
Yeah.
because she never believes that she is worth anything better.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. So, final question. Final question. What's the truth about women and well-being that you are no longer prepared to be quiet about?
How long have you got? No, no, I'm gonna say this one. It's not flipping rocket science, okay? What has happened in the diet industry and the well-being industry, wellness,
Mm,
and let's be honest, social media has been a big part of this, is the absolute BS information out there
mm,
that so many women are confused. Do I do keto? Do I intermittent fast? Do I not have carbs? Do I eat before 6 o'clock? All these BS rules, regulations that have made her think that the reason she can't achieve what she wants to achieve is because she's not disciplined enough, she doesn't have enough willpower, motivation, she's stupid, she's, all these different things. So I think my biggest message is, it's not rocket science, but it is science. And everything that I do is so simple. Women say, like, they come into the program and they're like, oh my God, if I knew
yeah.
it was this simple, I'd have I'd have, I've been out to you a year ago, whatever. It has been so overcomplicated by the diet industry, big pharma, all these different things. And it is not complicated.
I could talk to you forever. Um, One thing that I will say is this conversation has sparked an idea of mine, so I've jotted it down. Oh yes, it has. I've jotted it down. Um, I believe that the suppressing of women, of humans, I believe that the shrinkage of women um is so much more deeper than what we've even touched on during this conversation. But it needs to stop, and we need more people like yourself to go out there and keep on changing the world. And if anybody was healing the world, I'd say you were. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon. We're going to put all Naomi's details at the bottom of this, and I'll be back with another incredible guest. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.